Our next guest needs no introduction, a former member of the Sporting News, Pro Football Weekly, of course, the Sports Exchange. He's a host over at Sirius XM Radio, a Pro Football Hall of Fame voter, of course, a beat writer for the Cards Wire over at USA Today. We're going to get into that and a whole lot more, including some Pro Football Hall of Fame debate with the man, the myth, the legend, celebrating 50 years of covering the National Football League. He is Howard Balzer, dropping H-bombs on us every Wednesday. Good morning from the desert, Howard.
Good morning to you, and happy to be in the desert. We've actually got temperatures now that are, for the next week or so, going to be only in the 80s, which is what everybody waits for. And everybody says, this is why I moved, or this is why I live in Arizona. So great to be with you once again. I know we have a lot of NFL talk, but I just wanted to very, very quickly as possible, just comment on a couple things you said about the UFL.
Yes.
I'm with you 100% on when the season starts. I think one of the worries, concerns, is if you do it early, is you can start having some weather issues in some of those cities, especially if you're playing Columbus. I mean, I can't imagine what would happen. I would say this, that if they had a big snowstorm in Columbus before a game and they put out a call for people to come shovel the stadium, I don't know that they'd get too many people out there to do that like they do in Buffalo or Green Bay or whatever. So that's one aspect. I do think it works better for a lot of reasons, but I think that's one of the concerns. I'm very curious with this new alignment. You're still playing 10 games. You have 8 teams. So how are they going to work the schedule? It's going to be very random. I assume every team will play every other team at least once, but then you've got 4 other games. How are you going to work that? That could end up being crucial in terms of who makes the playoffs. But, we'll see how it all plays out. The other thing they haven't said, Rick, is are they still going to have the one spot where it's been Arlington in the past where all the teams practice and then the two teams fly to the city where the game is each week? And I think that has a negative effect on attendance. And now, especially with new markets where those markets, I mean, there's no presence of the team in the city where they're playing. And I think that can be difficult to generate ticket sales when, let's be honest, I mean, most of the fans in these cities don't even know who a lot of these players are. So anyway, I'm a supporter of it. I covered the Battlehawks for the first, half season in 2020 before the pandemic ended it all. I did some freelance work for the Alliance the year before in 2019. And so I'm a fan of all football. We talked about that last week, certainly hoping it all works out for them, but we'll see, And, but I think there's some other things they have to figure out there to improve the overall product and the overall marketing.
Yeah, marketing, I think, is the big key word there, especially grassroots marketing. Kind of hard to build excitement in the community when you're based in Arlington and you just fly out for games. There's really a disconnect there, and I think it's a big reason why you see so many empty seats in the UFL. But let's flip the page over to the NFL, Howard. And I think, the big topic I want to cover with you is this Jonathan Gannon story, because I don't know about you. I didn't have a problem with what Gannon did, okay? And now they've come out and the team, not the league, the team fined him $100,000. And then I saw him issue that apology, I think it was yesterday. I don't know if that was forced from the outside looking in. It looks like the team forced him to do this. I don't know if he necessarily wanted to do this, but we talk about creating a culture and team identity. Any concerns here that Jonathan Gannon comes across as soft, or am I just too old school in my ways of thinking?
Well, I don't know if it would, characterize him as potentially soft. I mean, I think though the actual apology occurred Monday afternoon, the day after the game, in his normal time of talking to the media. He knew he was going to be asked about it. And so, obviously he came up with his apology, said he apologized to the team and to DeMercado in the team meeting, which was earlier that morning. And he said he woke up Monday morning and he just felt like he didn't handle that well. And he says, that's not who I am. The NFLPA looked into it, and that was one of the things I think that led to the fine because, they're advocating for players and how they're treated and all those things. And I think realistically, if there hadn't been video of it, there probably would have been no fine. And no one would have even known about that sideline interaction. I thought what was interesting, too, is that Paris Johnson Jr., the Cardinals left tackle, was standing there while this happened with his arm on DeMercado's shoulder and didn't react like this was the craziest thing he ever saw. So there's the feeling, and I know Gannon's probably not going to say it because he doesn't want to come off as, well, here's what I was really doing, here's what this was about. And there's many who believe he just came over and want to say, hey, you got to keep your head in the game. And then he kind of slaps, a little bit, almost like a guy when he, pats a guy or whatever, says, come on, get into it. So, and I think that was pretty much what it was all about. But like I said, without the video, I'm not so sure that we would have seen this fine, which of course the team didn't announce. And it was, revealed by Adam Schefter of ESPN. And so, we'll see what goes, here. I think Gannon is a guy who's had a very good relationship with the players for the way he treats them, the way he listens to them, and all those things. Obviously, we don't know what totally goes on behind closed doors, but he rarely, if ever, throws guys under the bus. In fact, when they have a game like Sunday or other games that they've inexplicably lost, he's not in the blame game. He says it's coaching. I've got to do a better job. The coaches have to do a better job, even though most of us, I believe, looking at it from the outside, have eyes. And we can see that a lot of these things that happen are player stuff, with a too early snap of the football that leads to a turnover when they might not have made 3rd and 12, but they would have kicked the field goal there. And that changes the game. Obviously, all the talk now, Rick, in the Phoenix area, oh my goodness, people are out of their minds. I was driving around the other day looking for the nearest bridge to see if there were any fans trying to jump off it. But they're treated like the season is now over, and there's a lot of games to be played. So how they react is a big thing. But the other point is, if DeMercado doesn't do what he did, then we're not even talking about all this stuff, because the Cardinals would have gone up 28-6 in the fourth quarter. And it's hard to imagine that the Titans would have been able to come back from that deficit and won in the third quarter. So it's, I'm always taken aback in all the years I've covered the sport by the reaction of fans, whatever city I'm in, whatever you see in other places. There always seems to me to be that, I don't know what it is, a mindset with people, that the play calling, I think we talked about this before, the play calling of the offensive coordinator or the quarterback is always front and center when a team loses. And that's what everybody points to. And now everyone's saying that Drew Petzing should be fired, right? Well, no one's pointing any fingers at the defense, which gave up 3 touchdowns. One of them was a fumbled interception, obviously, but gave up 3 long drives in the 3 quarters when they had shut down the Titans defense the entire game. Here's an amazing stat for you. The Titans had 115 yards after 3 quarters on 43 plays. In the fourth quarter, not counting 3 kneel downs at the end to set up the winning field goal, they had 22 plays for 219 yards. They made Cam Ward look like a Hall of Famer. Yeah. Up until and let's remember, too, the Titans' first drive for a touchdown came right after DeMercado's play, where they went 80 yards right down the field. Prior to that, Cam Ward was 8 for 21 for 72 yards through 3 quarters. Fourth quarter, 13 for 18 for 193. And they gave up huge chunks of yardage on big plays. And so, a 3rd and 8 play late, it really has gotten everybody nuts. How can you run the ball on 3rd and 8 when you're trying to run out the clock? The coaches have acknowledged that they didn't love the call, but there wasn't much they could do at that point for it. And so, of course, everyone blames the loss on that. Well, even if you pass the ball on 3rd and 8, it's not guaranteed you're going to get a first down, right? But the bottom line is stop the Titans. Stop them after that. But they went down the field, got the ball at the 18-yard line, and gained, aside from the kneel downs, 78 yards in the drive, and they did it instantaneously. But no one's even talking about the defense. And I think a part of that is play calling is directly related in a lot of people's minds to offense, obviously, because there's a play call, a run, a pass, whatever it might be. No one thinks of defense as plays being called, right? Because it's not really a play being called, but it's a defense being called. And a lot of times the defense called doesn't work out to be the best one for what the offense ends up doing. And Nick Rallis, the coordinator, has acknowledged that at times where the call we had didn't really work for that play against the 49ers when they gave up a 20-yard screenplay to Christian McCaffrey, which put them into basically chip shot field goal range instead of a much longer field goal to win that game. So it's going to be wild to see what happens next, because the Cardinals' next 4 games, Rick, at Indianapolis, home against Green Bay, bye, at Dallas, and at Seattle. So a lot of people are looking at that and saying, boy, this could be looking pretty ugly if a lot of these mental mistakes and things that happen continue. And so it's going to be very fascinating to see what occurs. But it's really crazy. I mean, here's a team that's lost, the first team in NFL history, Rick, first team in NFL history to lose 3 consecutive games on time expiring field goals, right? 3 games by a total of 5 points. There are 22 teams in the league, 22 games in the NFL that have been decided by 15 points or less. And let me see and the number is another pretty big number has been decided by 20 or not 15 or less, 15 or 19 more. And, there's another 8 or 15 to 19, 8 or 20 to 29, and another 6 by 40 points or more, right? Cardinals aren't that, but people are reacting as if now they're just like one of the worst football teams ever put together.
Sounds like a crossroads moment for this Cardinals franchise. And I will say one last thing about Gannon. Like, I've become a fan. I just worry about, like, is the NFL going to start trying to police the emotion in the game? Because that tells me the coach cares. That's the coach I want behind me. And, obviously DeMarcado playing there because of the absence of James Conner and Trey Benson. And now heading into this Colts matchup, the status of one Kyler Murray is a little bit up in the air. What do you got for us?
Yeah, that's an interesting thing too, because he was injured on that early snap play, which if you see the play, right at the time the ball was snapped or moments after, the right guard, John Gaines II, was standing up, pointing with his left arm forward, right? And with his right hand looking to the right and tapping his helmet, which we found out he was indicating the protection. Well, the ball was snapped early. While he was doing that, he wasn't expecting the snap. Murray wasn't expecting the snap. Hit him in the face, bounces forward, Titans recover, and somehow, we don't know how, he injures his foot on the play and leaves the game. Does come back after a Titans possession after 2 plays and is in the game on 3rd and 9. But on the previous play, Jacoby Brissett throws a pass that was way off the mark, and Tip Ryman cuts funny. They're blocking tight end and destroys his ankle, and he's out for the season. And then it was the 3rd and 9 play. Murray comes in, throws an incomplete pass, but it wouldn't have mattered if he had completed, because on that play they had an illegal formation, and the center yelled to Froholt, who was the one who had the early snap on the previous possession. He was illegally downfield. And so there was just this comedy of errors that happened in this game, one thing after another. And then we don't know about him. I mean, I think Murray's going to play, but the thing you worry about or wonder about is, will this affect his scrambling and his running, which is a huge part of his game. He had a 12-yard touchdown in that game on Sunday. And I don't believe after he came back that he ever ran the ball again. And so that can affect the play calling and what you're doing on offense also. So a lot of questions, obviously, like we said, Rick, with the team and how they respond in Indianapolis this week could be could be a big thing. It's interesting. I saw an email right before coming on about how now Gannon has surged to the head ahead of the coaches most likely to be fired. And so what amazes me about this, and Vegas, how the odds work, but there's so much overreaction to the movement of odds as if that says anything that people really know. It's not. But after what happened on Sunday and the fine and all those things, what do people do, right? That see odds and they'll bet on stuff like that. Well, they look at what Gannon's odds were and they say, whoa, that's a pretty good bet, right? That's a nice little long shot. So all of a sudden people start betting it. And the more people bet on one thing, the more the odds change, because obviously those accepting the bets, wherever it is, whatever sports book, they're all not wanting too much on one side. And so that, or not any more bets coming in on it, because if it comes true, they're going to take a bath. And so those are the things that drives those odds. And yet I never see that referred to. It's like, oh, look at this. What do they know? Well, they don't know anything. It's just fans taking guesses, especially on awards, right? Especially on awards of what they think are going to happen, or coaches being fired or things like that.